Hello, friends. You're watching The Night Watchman, where every day you'll hear a brand new horror story that will send chills down your spine. But to keep bringing you these terrifying tales, we need your love and support. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's begin the story. I never thought my life would turn into one of those nightmare stories you hear about on late night podcasts. But here I am, still shaking as I type this out. My name is Sarah Thompson, and I grew up in a quiet suburb of Seattle, Washington, the kind of place where everyone knows your business, but nobody really cares enough to dig too deep. Rainy days blurring into one another, coffee shops on every corner, and that constant overcast sky that makes everything feel just a little more isolated. It was just me, my dad, and our old craftsman house on Maple Street until everything changed. My mom died when I was 12. It was a car accident on I-5 during one of those infamous Seattle downpours. She was coming home from her shift at the hospital. She was a nurse, always working late to make ends meet. Dad said the semi-truck hydroplaned and slammed into her Honda Civic. No survivors. After that, Dad buried himself in his job as a software engineer at a tech firm downtown. He was always glued to his laptop, coding away the grief. I handled it by throwing myself into school and my part-time gig at the local bookstore. We were okay, I guess, just surviving. Then about 2 years ago, Dad met Victoria. She was his new coworker, transferred in from the Boston office. Tall, elegant, with sharp cheekbones and hair so black it looked like it absorbed light. She had this way of smiling that made you feel like you were the only person in the room, but her eyes, they were cold, like staring into a winter lake. Dad fell hard. They dated for 6 months before he proposed, and suddenly she was moving in. "She's going to bring some light back into our lives, Sarah," he said, his face lit up for the first time since Mom's funeral. I wanted to believe him. I really did. At first, Victoria was perfect. She cooked these amazing meals: roast chicken with herbs from the garden she'd insisted on planting, homemade apple pie that tasted like it came from a diner in the Midwest. She'd ask about my day at Lincoln High School, listen to my rants about calculus or my crush on that guy in band class. She even helped me pick out a dress for homecoming. But there were little things that nagged at me, like how she'd stare at old family photos on the mantle, especially the ones of Mom, or the way she'd hum this eerie tune while doing chores, a melody that sounded ancient, like something from a forgotten folk song. One night, about a month after the wedding, I couldn't sleep. The rain was pounding on the roof like it wanted to break through. I crept downstairs for a glass of water and heard voices from the living room. Dad was asleep upstairs. I could hear his snoring through the vents. So who was Victoria talking to? I peeked around the corner. She was sitting on the couch, phone pressed to her ear, whispering urgently, "No, it's not time yet. The girl suspects nothing. Just a little longer." My heart raced. Who was she talking to? I backed away quietly, but the floor creaked. She whipped her head around, her eyes locking onto mine in the dark. "Sarah? Honey, what are you doing up?" Her voice was sweet as honey, but I saw the flash of something darker in her expression. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. Made pancakes with blueberries, Dad's favorite. But I couldn't shake it. I started paying more attention. Victoria had this habit of disappearing for hours on end. She'd say she was running errands, grocery shopping at Whole Foods or meeting a friend at Pike Place Market, but she'd come back with no bags, just that same serene smile. And then there were the nightmares. They started subtle. Dreams of a woman in white screaming in pain, her face morphing into Victoria's. I'd wake up sweating, heart pounding, and swear I heard footsteps retreating down the hall. I tried talking to Dad about it once, over breakfast. "Dad, don't you think Victoria's a bit off? Like, secretive?" He laughed it off. "Come on, Sarah, she's just adjusting. Give her time. You're 16 now, old enough to know life's not a fairy tale." But it felt like one, all right. The kind where the stepmother poisons the apple. Things escalated when I found the box in the attic. We'd been cleaning out old stuff for a garage sale, Victoria's idea, to make space for new memories. I was sorting through Mom's old clothes when I stumbled on a dusty cardboard box tucked behind some Christmas decorations. It wasn't labeled, but something drew me to it. Inside were newspaper clippings, yellowed with age. The headlines screamed at me, Boston woman vanishes after suspicious fire. Husband dies in tragic accident. Wife inherits fortune. Mysterious death of stepdaughter ruled. Suicide. My hands shook as I read. All from the East Coast, spanning a decade. And in every photo, there she was. Victoria, but with different names. Vivian Hart, Veronica Slade, Victoria Black. Always the grieving widow or stepmother, always moving on. I confronted her that night. Dad was at a late meeting, so it was just us in the kitchen. "What is this?" I thrust the clippings at her. She didn't flinch. Instead, she poured herself a glass of wine, took a slow sip, and smiled. "Curious little thing, aren't you? Just like the others." My blood ran cold. "What others?" She set the glass down, her eyes narrowing. "Your mother was an accident, Sarah. Truly. But sometimes, fate needs a push. And now, you're in the way." I bolted upstairs, locked my door, and called my best friend, Mia. "You need to get out of there," she whispered over the phone. But before I could grab my keys, the power cut out. The house plunged into darkness, the only light from the street lamp filtering through the rain-streaked window. I heard the stairs creak. 1, 2, 3. Slow, deliberate. "Sarah," Victoria's voice echoed, soft and sing-song. "Come out, dear. We need to talk." I hid under the bed, phone clutched in my hand, texting Dad. "Help! Victoria is crazy." But the signal was gone. Storm interference, maybe. Or something worse. The doorknob rattled, then stopped. Silence. Too much silence. Then a whisper right by my ear. "I know where you are." How? I hadn't made a sound. I scrambled out, hardened my throat, and ran for the window. But she was there, blocking the door, her silhouette lit by lightning. "You think you're the first stepdaughter to snoop?" Poor Emily in Boston. She thought she could expose me too. Slipped right off that balcony. She lunged, but I dodged, grabbing a lamp from my desk and swinging it hard. It connected with her shoulder, shattering. She hissed, actually hissed, like an animal, and backed off for a second. I dashed past her, down the stairs, slipping on the wet floor from the open back door. Rain poured in. She'd left it ajar. I made it to the garage, fumbling for Dad's old toolbox. A hammer. Something. Anything. Footsteps behind me. "Sarah, this can be quick, or it can hurt." I whirled around, hammer raised. She was closer now, her face twisted in the dim light. That's when I saw it. Her eyes weren't just cold. They glowed faintly, like embers in the dark. "What are you?" I gasped. She laughed, a low, chilling sound. "Old. Very old. I've worn many faces, taken many lives. Your father was just a means to an end, a new start in a new city. But girls like you always complicate things." Lightning flashed again, illuminating the garage. That's when I noticed the scratches on her arms. Fresh, like from a struggle. And then I remembered, earlier that day, our neighbor's cat had gone missing. Mrs. Jenkins across the street had been putting up posters. Victoria hated animals. No. She fed on them. My mind reeled. This wasn't just a serial killer. This was something out of a horror movie, something that didn't belong in rainy Seattle. I swung the hammer, catching her knee. She crumpled with a shriek that echoed unnaturally, like multiple voices layered over one another. I ran back into the house, slamming the door behind me, and barricaded it with a chair. Upstairs, phone, keys, escape. But as I reached the landing, the lights flickered back on. Dad's voice. "Sarah, what's going on?" He was home early, standing in the foyer, confused. "She's trying to kill me," I screamed, pointing to the garage door. But when we burst in, Victoria was gone. Just a puddle of rain and a broken lamp shard on the floor. Dad looked at me like I'd lost it. "Honey, Victoria's at her book club. She left an hour ago." No, impossible. I'd seen her. Fought her. The police came. Searched the house. Nothing. They chalked it up to a break-in. Maybe a hallucination from stress. Dad suggested therapy. But I knew the truth. I spent the next week digging online, old forums, ancestry sites. Victoria's past lives went back further than Boston. Records from Chicago in the 90s. A suspicious death in New Orleans in the 80s. Always a widow, always a stepmother, always vanishing after tragedy struck. She came back that Friday, acting normal, kissing Dad hello, but her eyes on me, promising. I couldn't stay. I packed a bag and crashed at Mia's place in Bellevue. Told Dad I needed space. He bought it for now. But the nightmares didn't stop. And then last night, my phone buzzed at 3 a.m. A text from an unknown number. You can't run forever, stepdaughter. Seattle's big, but not that big. Attached was a photo of me sleeping in Mia's guest room, taken from inside the house. I haven't slept since. Dad's not answering his calls. I'm at a coffee shop downtown now, watching the door, jumping at every shadow. If you're reading this and something happens to me, check the attic. The clippings are still there. And whatever Victoria is, demon, witch, monster, she's real, and she's coming. The rain's picking up again. I think I see her across the street, umbrella in hand, smiling. Story 2. I never trusted Elena from the day she moved into our house on Elmwood Drive in Portland, Oregon. It was 2018, and I was 14, still reeling from Mom's car accident on I-5 the year before. Dad said Elena was a godsend, a 32-year-old real estate agent from Seattle who'd swept into his life at a grief support group in Beaverton. She had that perfect suburban smile, blonde hair in a bob, yoga pants, and a Subaru Outback with a Live Laugh Love sticker. But her eyes, they were too still, like a doll's. Our house was a craftsman bungalow, the kind with creaky oak floors and a basement Dad used for his home brewery. Portland's endless rain made everything damp, and the evergreens outside scratched the windows like fingers. Elena fit right in at first, baking lavender scones, joining PTA at my school, Sunset High. She even called me sweetie, but it felt rehearsed. The backstory unraveled slowly, pieced together from whispers. Dad didn't know much. He'd been too broken after Mom. Elena's real name was Elena Voss, born in Tacoma but vanished from records after high school. A cousin in Seattle mentioned a fire. Her family's trailer burned down in 2005. Parents dead, her younger brother missing. She was never the same, the cousin said over coffee one day when Elena was out showing houses. No body found for the brother, just ashes. Elena claimed it was faulty wiring, but neighbors remembered screams. I started noticing things 6 months in. Late nights, she'd slip downstairs to the basement, flashlight bobbing. I'd hear murmurs like a child's voice echoing off the concrete walls. Once, peeking through the door crack, I saw her kneeling by Dad's old beer fermenters, tracing something on the floor with chalk. Symbols, jagged and wrong. She looked up, eyes locking on the door, and smiled. Just organizing, sweetie. Suspense built that fall. Portland's fog rolled in thicker, blanketing Elmwood. My grades slipped. I couldn't sleep. Elena's errands multiplied. Trips to the Willamette River at dawn, coming back with wet boots and soil under her nails. Dad proposed on Halloween, oblivious, at a pumpkin patch in Sauvie Island. The ring was vintage, gold with a black opal. She accepted with tears, but I saw her whisper to it. Wedding was small, at a chapel in downtown Portland. I wore a stiff dress, forced a smile. That night back home, the house felt heavier. In my room upstairs, I found a photo under my pillow. Me as a toddler with Mom, but Mom's face scratched out. On the back in childish scrawl, "Mine now." I confronted her next morning over oatmeal. "What is this?" Elena sipped her bulletproof coffee, unfazed. "Memories fade, honey. Your mom's gone. I'm here." Her voice dropped. "Family sticks together." That afternoon, Dad left for a brewing conference in Bend. Alone with her. First night, the whispers returned, louder from the vents. "Ellie, play." A girl's voice? No, boys, high-pitched. I bolted the basement door, barricaded with my desk. Midnight, scratching started. Not rats, deliberate, like nails on wood. From inside the walls. By dawn, I hadn't slept. Elena knocked softly. "Sweetie, breakfast?" Her eyes gleamed. I grabbed my phone, texted my best friend Mia in Gresham. "Something wrong with Stepmom. Help." No reply. Later, her mom said Mia's phone was missing. Day 2, power flickered during a storm. Rain hammered the roof like fists. Elena cooked pot roast, humming, "Rock-a-bye Baby." We ate in silence. After, she pulled out photo albums, not ours. Grainy shots from Tacoma. Elena, maybe 10, with a scrawny boy, 6 or 7. Same eyes, burn marks on the trailer's edge. One photo captioned, "Forever Brothers." "You're digging?" I whispered. She froze. "What do you know about digging?" That night, the basement lock broke, snapped clean. I hid in my closet, heart pounding. Footsteps padded downstairs, then silence. Hours later, a thud, then dragging. Wet sounds like mud. Whispers. "Ellie. Cold. Warm him up." Morning, Elena was chipper, making smoothies with kale from our backyard. Mud flecks on the kitchen floor trailed to the basement. I snuck down while she showered. The chalk symbols formed a circle, smeared with red dirt. In the center, a small shoe. Boy's sneaker, scorched edges, size 1. Label inside, "Ethan Voss, 2005. My stomach dropped. Brother. The fire hadn't killed him. She'd kept him? I ran upstairs, locked myself in. Phone dead, battery drained, though full before. No signal anyway, towers down from the storm. Portland gridlock on the roads, news said, "Flash floods." Elena knocked. "We need to talk, sweetie." Her voice was syrupy but edged. "Family secrets." I didn't answer. Hours passed. Dusk fell, fog swallowing the streetlights. Neighbors' houses dark, power out everywhere. Then the chanting started. Low, rhythmic, from below. Latin? No, gibberish with English woven in. Ethan wakes. New home. Sister gives. The floor vibrated. I clutched Mom's old locket, whispering prayers. Scratching at my door now. Inside the room? No, from the closet. The one with the photo. I yanked it open. Nothing. But the air smelled of smoke and earth. A giggle. Child's. From the walls. Panic surged. I smashed the window, shards cutting my palms. Yelled for help. Mr. Hargrove next door flickered his porch light. Then it died. Elena's laugh echoed up the stairs. She was there when I turned. Door open, no sound. "Running won't help," she said. "Ethan needs a brother or a sister. You're perfect." Her hand shot out, syringe glinting. Sedative? From her realtor bag? I dodged, bolted past, down the stairs. Basement door yawned open. No choice. Hide there? Inside, the circle pulsed faintly, like bioluminescence. In the fermenter tub, emptied of beer, something writhed. Cloth? No. A shape, small, pale, slick with mud. Fingers uncurled, eyes opened, milky, pleading. "Warm." Ellie lied. Elena descended, blocking the exit. "He was cold after the fire. I kept him safe. Buried him right here under the house foundation. Roots kept him alive. But he grows hungry, needs fresh blood to mend." Insane, but real. The boy twitched, whispering my name. "Join us." I grabbed a beer bottle, smashed it. Glass weapon, lunged at her. She sidestepped, agile from yoga. Grabbed my wrist. "Your family now. Dad will understand." Struggle. She was stronger, feral. Syringe pricked my neck. Dizzy haze. Boy thing crawled out, gurgling. Cold hands on my ankle. Blackness. I woke strapped to the circle's edge. Wrists bound with extension cords. Elena knelt by Ethan, feeding him oatmeal laced with blood. My cuts. Portland dawn filtered through tiny basement windows. Dad due back soon. "Let me go," I gasped. She stroked my hair. "Shh. Ritual's almost done. Ethan takes your heart, metaphorically. You'll be him, new body, fresh. I'll be Mom forever." Ethan's mouth opened. Too wide, teeth needle sharp. He lunged, scream tore from me. Last burst of strength, I kicked the fermenter. It toppled, crushing the circle. Symbols shattered. Ethan shrieked, dissolving into sludge, bubbling like acid. Elena howled, clawing at me. I freed one hand, grabbed the jagged sneaker, stabbed her throat. Gurgle. She slumped. Sirens wailed. Neighbors finally called 911. Dad burst in hours later, found me catatonic amid the mess. Police chalked it to intruder. Body identified as Elena Voss. History of mental illness. Basement renovation mess. But I know. Last week, unpacking boxes, a small shoe fell out. Clean. Labeled Ethan. And from the vents, a whisper. Play. Brother? Dad remarried last month. New woman from Seattle. Perfect smile. Story 3, I never thought my life would turn into one of those twisted tales you hear about on late-night podcasts, the kind that make you double-check the locks on your doors. But here I am, years later, still waking up in cold sweats, replaying every detail. My name is Emily Carter, and this all started back in 2018 in the quiet suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio. It was the kind of place where everyone knew your business. Kids riding bikes down tree-lined streets, neighbors waving from porches, and the occasional block party where folks grilled burgers and pretended everything was perfect. But nothing was perfect after Mom died. Mom, her name was Laura, passed away in a car accident on I-90, just outside the city. She was coming home from her shift at the hospital where she worked as a nurse. The police said it was a hit and run. Some drunk driver sideswiped her and vanished into the night. Dad, John Carter, was devastated. He was a high school history teacher at Westlake High, the type of guy who quoted Lincoln at dinner and collected old maps. After Mom's funeral, he shut down. For months, our house on Elmwood Drive felt like a ghost town. Me, a 16-year-old trying to hold it together, cooking frozen pizzas and doing laundry while Dad stared at the TV, not really watching. That's when Sarah entered the picture. Dad met her at a support group for widows and widowers at the community center downtown. She was from Akron, about an hour south, and had lost her husband in a factory accident at the Goodyear plant. Or so she said. Sarah Thompson was beautiful in that effortless way. Long auburn hair, green eyes that sparkled like emeralds, and a smile that could light up a room. She was a real estate agent, selling those cookie-cutter homes in the developments popping up around Lake Erie. Dad fell hard and fast. 6 months after they met, he proposed, and by summer, she was moving in with her designer luggage and that perpetual scent of lavender perfume. At first, I tried to like her. Really, I did. Sarah cooked elaborate dinners, roast chicken with herbs from her little garden, apple pies that tasted like they came from a bakery. She'd ask about my day at school, help with my algebra homework, even took me shopping at the mall in Strongsville. We're family now, Emily, she'd say, hugging me a little too tight. But there was something off. Her stories about her past didn't add up. One night, over tacos, she mentioned growing up in a farmhouse near Canton. But another time, she said it was Pittsburgh. Small slips, I thought. Grief messes with people. The backstory I pieced together came from snippets Dad shared and what I overheard. Sarah's husband, Mark, had died 5 years earlier. Official report, he fell from a scaffold at work, broke his neck. No foul play, but Sarah had been questioned because neighbors reported arguments, loud ones, about money and her secrets. She laughed it off when Dad mentioned it once, saying small-town gossip was vicious. People love to invent drama, she'd quip, flipping her hair. Dad bought it, but I didn't. I started noticing things, like how she'd stare at Mom's old photos on the mantle, her lips curling just a fraction, or the way she'd hum this eerie tune while doing dishes, something that sounded like an old nursery rhyme but twisted off-key. It was fall when the weirdness escalated, leaves turning crimson on the maples outside, football games blaring from TVs on Friday nights. I came home from soccer practice one afternoon and found Sarah in my room, rifling through my dresser. "Just tidying up, sweetie," she said, but her eyes darted away. Later, I discovered Mom's locket missing, the one with the tiny photo of us three at Cedar Point Amusement Park. I confronted her, but she denied it, tears welling up. Dad sided with her, calling me paranoid. "Emily, she's trying her best," he said. That night, I heard whispers from their bedroom. Sarah's voice, low and urgent, like she was arguing with someone. But Dad was snoring. Suspicion gnawed at me. I started digging, using the school computer lab. I didn't want her finding my search history. I looked up Sarah Thompson from Akron. Nothing alarming at first. A few real estate listings, a wedding announcement from 2010. But then I found an old forum post on a site called Ohio Unsolved. buried in threads about local mysteries. Someone anonymous claimed Sarah's husband didn't fall. He was pushed. She had a motive, life insurance payout, and she's not who she says she is. The poster mentioned a twin sister, vanished years ago. My heart raced. A twin? Sarah never mentioned siblings. That weekend, Dad had a teachers' conference in Columbus, leaving me alone with her. "We'll have a girls' night," Sarah beamed, popping popcorn for a movie marathon. But as we watched some rom-com on Netflix, I couldn't shake the unease. The house felt colder, shadows longer under the dim lamps. Around midnight, I excused myself to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan, whirring lazily, when I heard it. Footsteps in the hallway. Soft, deliberate. The door to my room creaked open. I froze, pretending to sleep, peeking through slit eyelids. Sarah stood there, silhouetted by the hall light, holding something glinting. Mom's locket. She whispered, "Soon it'll be just us." Then she left. My blood turned to ice. I waited until her door clicked shut, then slipped downstairs to the basement, where Dad kept old files. Rifling through boxes, I found Mom's accident report, clipped from the Cleveland Plain dealer. Hit and run, silver sedan. Sarah drove a silver Honda back then? I'd seen photos on her Facebook. Coincidence? My mind spun. What if she targeted Dad? What if the accident wasn't random? The next morning, Sarah was all sunshine, making pancakes. "Sleep well?" she asked, her smile too wide. I mumbled yes, but my hands shook. After breakfast, I biked to the library on Detroit Avenue, using their computers to search deeper. That's when I hit pay dirt. A digitized obituary from 1995 in Pittsburgh. Twin sisters, Sarah and Eliza Thompson. Eliza disappeared at age 12 during a family picnic at Kennywood Park. Sarah, the surviving twin, was questioned but cleared. "She was always jealous," a quoted relative said. "Acted like Eliza didn't exist after." Jealousy, secrets, it clicked. What if Sarah had a split personality? Or worse, what if Eliza wasn't gone? I raced home, heart pounding. The house was quiet, too quiet. Sarah's car was in the driveway, but no sign of her. I crept upstairs, hearing that humming again from the attic. We never used the attic. It was full of Mom's old stuff. Pulling down the ladder, I climbed up, flashlight in hand from my phone. Dust motes danced in the beam, boxes stacked high, cobwebs draping like veils. And there in the corner, Sarah sat cross-legged, surrounded by photos, Mom's photos, torn from albums. But it wasn't just Sarah. She was talking to herself, voice shifting. One soft and pleading, the other sharp and commanding. "You can't have him, Eliza. He's mine now." Then in a child's whine, "But I want a family too." I gasped. She whipped around, eyes wild. "Emily, what are you doing here?" She stood, locket dangling from her fist. I backed away, but she lunged, grabbing my arm. "You shouldn't snoop. Secrets are dangerous." Panic surged. I yanked free, tumbling down the ladder. Pain shot through my ankle, but I limped to the kitchen, grabbing a knife from the block. Sarah followed, calm now, almost pitying. "Your mom was in the way, you know, just like Mark. And Eliza, she wouldn't share." Her voice cracked, splitting into two tones. "We share everything now." She advanced and I swung the knife wildly. It nicked her arm, blood blooming on her sleeve. She laughed, a chilling, dual laugh. "You can't hurt us both." I bolted for the door, screaming for neighbors. Mr. Jenkins next door heard, called 911. Police arrived as Sarah, or whoever she was, tried to drag me back inside. The investigation unraveled everything. Turns out, Sarah had dissociative identity disorder, triggered by killing her twin in childhood jealousy. Eliza lived on as an alter ego, vengeful and manipulative. They stalked Dad after seeing him at a conference, orchestrated Mom's accident to clear the path. The silver Honda matched paint flecks from the crash site. Mark's death? Pushed for insurance, with Eliza's help. Dad was shattered, divorced her immediately. Sarah's in a psych ward in Toledo now, medicated, but I hear she still whispers to herself. Me? I moved to Chicago for college, but I never feel alone. Sometimes in quiet moments, I swear I hear that humming. Story 4, I never wanted a stepmom. My name's Ethan Harper, and I was 14 when Dad brought Sarah home to our old farmhouse in Millfield, Ohio. Millfield's one of those forgotten dots on the map, cornfields stretching forever under gray skies, the kind of place where the wind howls through cracked windows like it's got secrets to tell. Dad had met her online, some dating app for widows and divorcees. Mom died 2 years earlier from cancer, leaving just me and him rattling around the house on Route 7 near the Old Wayne National Forest. Sarah was from Columbus, 28 years old, with porcelain skin, raven hair, and eyes like polished obsidian. She smiled too wide, hugged too tight. Dad said she was a godsend. I thought she was a ghost waiting to haunt us. It started small. Sarah moved in during a brutal November, the kind where frost bites your fingers before dawn. She'd cook these massive breakfasts, pancakes stacked high, bacon crispy just how Dad liked. But she'd watch me eat, her head tilted, like she was memorizing my every bite. "You're growing so fast, Ethan," she'd say, her voice soft as corn silk. I'd nod, force a smile, and escape to school. Millfield High was a drag. Same faces, same rumors about the abandoned Miller place down the road, where a family vanished in the 70s. But home felt worse. One night, maybe a week in, I woke to scratching. Not mice, deeper, like nails on wood from above. Our house was 2 stories with a pull-down attic ladder, dusty and forgotten since Mom's old trunks got stored up there. I lay in bed, heart thumping, listening. Scratch, pause, scratch, scratch. Then a whisper, faint through the floorboards. "Ethan, come up." My name, in Sarah's voice. But she was downstairs. I heard Dad's TV droning. I pulled the covers over my head, told myself it was the wind. Kids in Millfield spooked each other with stories of the forest spirits, Native American curses from the Shawnee days. Bullshit, I thought. Go back to sleep. By Christmas, Sarah was pregnant. Dad was over the moon, talking baby names like Willow or Mason. She glowed, but her eyes stayed flat. She'd linger in my doorway at night, silhouetted against the hall light. "Sweet dreams, Ethan," she'd murmur, and I'd swear her shadow stretched too long on the wall. The scratching got worse. Every few nights I'd jolt awake to it, deliberate, rhythmic, like Morse code. Once I grabbed my phone, recorded it, played it back in the morning, just static. But that whisper, crystal clear. "Ethan, Mommy's waiting." I started digging. Mom's diaries were in the attic. I'd helped pack them after she died. One afternoon, Dad at work, Sarah napping, I yanked the ladder down. Dust choked the air, beams creaking like old bones. Boxes everywhere, labeled in Mom's neat script. Photos, keepsakes. I found her journals, yellowed pages smelling of lavender. She wrote about Millfield's history, how the farmhouse was built in 1892 on land where a woman named Eliza Crow hanged herself in the attic after her son drowned in the nearby creek. Eliza's husband remarried quick, brought in a new wife who stole the boy. Locals said Eliza's spirit never left, whispering to kids, marking them as hers. Mom laughed it off as folklore, but the last entry, dated a week before her diagnosis, "Heard scratching last night, sounded like my name." Felt watched. Chills crawled up my spine. I shoved the diary in my backpack, climbed down fast. Sarah was in the kitchen stirring soup, her belly just starting to show. "Find what you needed?" she asked, not looking up. I froze. "Just old stuff." She smiled that wide smile. "The attic holds memories, Ethan. Don't disturb them." That night, the power flickered out during a storm. Thunder rattled the windows, rain lashed the roof like fists. Dad was on a late shift at the mill. Sarah called from downstairs, "Ethan, light!" I grabbed candles, met her in the living room. She looked pale, clutching her stomach. "Baby's kicking hard," she said. We sat by the fireplace, flames dancing shadows. She told me her backstory then, first time she'd opened up. Grew up in foster care after her parents died in a car wreck on E70. No siblings, bounced homes till 18. Met a guy in Columbus, married young, but he OD'd on fentanyl 2 years back. "I always wanted a family," she whispered, "like you and your dad." Sympathy tugged at me. Maybe I was wrong about her. Then the scratching started, loud, frantic from the attic. Sarah's eyes widened. "What is that?" I played dumb. "Raccoons, probably." But she stood, slow, like possessed. "No, it's calling." She climbed the ladder without a word. I followed, candle flickering. The attic was blacker than pitch, wind howling through gaps. Sarah knelt by Mom's trunk, prying it open. Inside, Eliza Crow's faded portrait, torn from some old newspaper. A woman with raven hair, obsidian eyes. Sarah's face. My blood turned to ice. "Sarah, that's not—" She whirled, eyes gleaming unnaturally. "She chose me, Ethan. Eliza. This house needed a mother for you. Your real mom was weak, left you alone. But I won't." The whisper came again, from everywhere. "Mine! My boy!" Sarah lunged, hands clawing. I stumbled back, candle dropping, flames licking boxes. "You're not my mom," I screamed, kicking her away. She laughed. Two voices, hers and something ancient. I bolted down the ladder, barricaded the attic door with the couch. Dad came home at dawn, power back on. Sarah was quiet, claiming she slipped. Bruises on her arms, but she smiled. "Just the baby moving." I showed Dad the diary, the photo. He paled but hugged me. "Old ghost stories, son. Sarah's good for us." Therapy sessions followed, me seeing a shrink in Athens, Dad chalking it up to grief. Sarah's belly grew. The scratching stopped, but now I heard footsteps. Soft, padding across the attic floor at night. Pacing. Spring brought thaw, but dread froze me solid. Sarah hosted a baby shower. Women from church, potluck spreads. I hid upstairs, eavesdropping. Laughter below, then Sarah's voice low. "Ethan's special. Been waiting for him." Footsteps upstairs. I turned. Her, belly huge now, blocking the door. "Time to meet your brother," she said, but her eyes weren't hers. Black voids. She grabbed my wrist, nails digging. "Eliza says you're hers first. The bloodline returns." I wrenched free, ran to the fields, called 911 from a neighbor's. Cops came, Sheriff Tate from Nelsonville. Found Sarah in the attic, rocking on the floorboards, chanting, "Ethan, Mommy's boy. Drowned like the first." They hauled her to Ohio State Psych in Columbus. Dad sobbed, said it was postpartum psychosis, even though the baby wasn't born. Scans showed nothing wrong physically. She vanished from records after a week. No trace. Summer hit, humid and merciless. Dad sold the house, moved us to an apartment in Marietta. But the whispers followed, soft at first in my dreams. "Ethan, come home." I'd wake sweating, attic dust in my nostrils. Dad drank more, stared at walls. One night, he confessed, "I knew about Eliza. Found letters in the crawl space when we bought the place. Thought it was nonsense." He handed me Sarah's phone, left behind. Text to an unknown number. "He's perfect. The boy from the stories. Attic prepared." Dad disappeared a month later. Truck found abandoned near Wayne Forest, keys in ignition. Search parties combed the creeks. No body. Sheriff said coyotes, but I knew. I was 15 now, foster care looming. Packed Mom's diary, drove Dad's truck to Millfield one last time. House empty, for sale sign crooked. Attic ladder down, I had to know. Dust thicker, air heavy with rot. Mom's trunk open, Eliza's photo shredded. Blood on the floorboards, fresh. Scratch marks formed words. "Mine forever." Footsteps behind me. I spun. Sarah, no, Eliza, stood there. Not pregnant, skin sallow, hair wild. But her eyes. Mine. "Ethan," she whispered. Voice mine too. "You brought me back. The stepmom vessel worked. Your dad swims with my first boy now." I ran, ladder snapping under me. Tumbled to the floor, leg broken. She descended slow, smiling that wide smile. "No more running, son. Millfield mothers keep their own." Her hands cold on my throat, squeezing. Whispers everywhere. Mine, Dad's, Mom's, blending into screams. I blacked out to scratching. Woke in the apartment. Leg fine, no bruises. News said house burned down. Arson suspected. I'm 20 now. in college in Cleveland. No whispers. But last week a package arrived. Mom's diary, attic dust inside. A note in Sarah's hand. Come home, Ethan. Baby's waiting. The attic door creaks open in my dreams, and I hear it again. Story 5. I never thought my life would turn into one of those late-night campfire tales, the kind that keeps you up staring at the ceiling. But here I am, Alex Thompson, 16 years old, from a quiet suburb in Portland, Oregon, where the rain never stops and the evergreens hide more secrets than you'd think. It all started 2 years ago when my mom, Lisa, died in a freak car accident on I-5. She was coming home from her shift at the hospital. She was a nurse, always helping people. The police said it was a hit and run, some drunk driver who vanished into the night. Dad was devastated. He shut down for months, barely leaving his office job at the tech firm downtown. I tried to hold it together for both of us, cooking frozen pizzas and pretending everything was fine. But nothing was. That's the backstory, I guess. The part where life felt like it was unraveling. Dad started going to grief support groups at the community center near Washington Park. That's where he met her, Sarah. She was a widow too, or so she said, with a soft southern accent that she claimed came from growing up in Atlanta, Georgia, before moving out west for work. She was a real estate agent, showing houses in the upscale neighborhoods like Lake Oswego. Pretty in that polished way, blonde hair always perfect, green eyes that seemed to see right through you. Dad fell hard. Within 6 months, they were engaged. She's good for us, Alec, he'd say, clapping me on the shoulder. She understands loss. I wanted to believe him. Hell, I needed to. But from the first dinner at our house on Maple Street, something felt off. Sarah moved in right after the wedding, a small ceremony at the courthouse downtown. She brought boxes of stuff, antique mirrors, old photo albums from her family back east, and this weird collection of porcelain dolls that she lined up on the shelves in the living room. They remind me of my childhood, she'd say with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. At first, she was the perfect stepmom. She'd bake apple pies, my mom's favorite recipe somehow, and help with my homework, even though I was in high school at Lincoln High. She'd ask about my friends like Jake from down the block, or my crush on Emily from biology class. It was nice, almost too nice. But then the little things started. One night, about a month in, I woke up to whispering. Our house is old, built in the 50s, with creaky floors and thin walls. I thought it was Dad talking in his sleep, but as I crept down the hallway, the sound was coming from the basement. Sarah was down there alone, murmuring to herself in front of one of those mirrors. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like she was arguing with someone. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened, serving pancakes with that same bright smile. Sleep well, honey? She'd ask, and I'd nod, feeling a chill I couldn't explain. The suspense built slowly, like fog rolling in from the Columbia River. Dad started changing. He forgot things, important things, like our anniversary trips to Cannon Beach or Mom's birthday. Once he called me by the wrong name. Tommy, pass the salt. Tommy? We didn't know any Tommy. When I asked him about it later, he laughed it off. Must be getting old, kid. But Sarah just watched, her eyes gleaming. Then came the dreams. I'd dream of Mom standing at the edge of our backyard, waving me over. But as I got closer, her face would shift into Sarah's and she'd whisper, "She's not who you think." I'd wake up sweating, heart pounding. I tried to dig into Sarah's past, used my laptop to search her name, Sarah Ellis, formerly Sarah Whitaker, from Atlanta. Found an old obituary for her supposed husband, a guy named Robert who died in a house fire 5 years back. But the details were fuzzy, no photos, just a brief notice in a local Georgia paper. I even checked social media. Nothing. It was like she'd appeared out of thin air. One afternoon, while she was out showing a property in Beaverton, I snuck into the guest room she'd turned into her office. Rifled through her drawers and found a locked box under the desk. I jimmied it open with a paperclip. Inside were photos. Old ones, yellowed. But they weren't of her family. They were of other families. A man and a boy in what looked like Texas, another in Florida. The women in the pictures, they all looked a bit like Mom. Same dark hair, same smile. And on the back of one, scribbled in faded ink, replaced 2015. My stomach dropped. I put everything back. But that night, Sarah cornered me in the kitchen. "Looking for something, Alex?" Her voice was sweet, but her grip on my arm was iron. Curiosity can be dangerous. I mumbled an excuse about homework, but from then on, the house felt wrong. Lights flickered when she walked by. The dolls on the shelf, their eyes seemed to follow me. Dad got sicker. He complained of headaches, started missing work. Doctors at OHSU said it was stress, but I knew better. The real horror hit on a rainy October evening. Dad was asleep upstairs, doped up on pain meds. I was in the living room scrolling through my phone when I heard it again. That whispering from the basement. This time I grabbed my phone to record it, crept down the stairs, the air growing colder with each step. The basement was our storage space, filled with Mom's old boxes we never unpacked. Sarah was there, standing in front of the mirror, but she wasn't alone. In the reflection, in the reflection, there was Mom. Not a ghost, but trapped, pounding silently on the glass, her mouth open in a scream. Sarah turned, her face twisting into something inhuman, eyes black, skin stretching like wax. "You shouldn't be here," she hissed, her accent gone, voice echoing like it came from deep underground. I backed away, but she lunged, fingers like claws. "I've waited so long to have a family again. Your mother fought, but she lost. Now it's your turn to join her." I ran, slamming the door, barricading it with a chair. Upstairs, I shook Dad awake. "We have to go. Sarah's not real. She's something else." He looked at me groggily, but then his eyes cleared, like a fog lifting. "Lisa," he whispered, and for a second I saw the old hymn. We bolted for the car, rain pounding on the windshield as we peeled out toward the highway. But she was waiting. Somehow she was already on the road, standing in the headlights, unchanged. Dad swerved, tires screeching on the wet pavement. The car spun, crashing into the guardrail. I blacked out. When I woke up in the hospital, Providence, St. Vincent, Dad was gone. Dead on impact, they said. Hit and run involvement suspected, but no evidence. Sarah? She was there, holding my hand, tears in her eyes. "Oh, Alex, I'm so sorry. We'll get through this together." The nurses cooed over her, the perfect grieving stepmom. That was 3 months ago. I'm back home now, on Maple Street. Sarah cooks dinner every night, asks about school. But at night, I hear the whispers. And in the mirror, sometimes I see Dad now, trapped with Mom, begging me to run. But where? She's everywhere, watching, waiting to replace me too. I've tried telling people, the cops, my therapist. They say it's trauma, grief. But I know the truth. She's not human. She's a collector, stealing lives, families. And soon there'll be no me left. If you're reading this, hidden in my journal under the floorboards, believe me, get out of Portland. Don't let her find you. Story 6. I never trusted Elena from the day she moved into our house on Northeast Sacramento Street in Portland. Dad had met her at a coffee shop in Selwood, the kind with mismatched mugs and baristas who remember your order. He was still grieving Mom. Cancer took her fast 2 years back, and Elena swooped in like a shadow at dusk. She was 38, with sharp cheekbones, auburn hair that fell in perfect waves, and eyes the color of storm clouds over the Willamette River. "She's perfect for us, Jake," Dad said, ruffling my hair. I was 14 then, old enough to see the cracks. Our house was a craftsman bungalow, built in 1925, with creaky oak floors and a widow's walk that overlooked the fog rolling in from the Columbia River Gorge. Portland's endless drizzle made everything feel damp, secretive. Elena brought her own boxes, mostly clothes from high-end boutiques in the Pearl District, and a few locked trunks she wouldn't let anyone touch. Family heirlooms, she called them, her voice smooth like the craft IPAs Dad loved at McMenamin's pubs. But at night, I'd hear scratches from her room, faint like nails on wood. The first weird thing happened a week after she moved in. I came home from Lincoln High, soaked from soccer practice, and found her in the kitchen humming an old hymn. Amazing Grace, but off-key, twisted. On the counter sat a plate of my favorite, Marionberry pie, steam rising like she'd baked it that morning. Mom used to make it. "For my new stepson," Elena said, smiling too wide. I ate a slice. It was perfect. Too perfect. That night, I dreamed of Mom's grave in Riverview Cemetery, dirt piling on her face while Elena watched, laughing. Dad proposed 3 months later at Multnomah Falls, under the spray that missed everything gray. They married in a quick City Hall ceremony downtown. No guests except me and her sister Vivian, who flew in from Seattle. Vivian was older, frumpy, with nervous eyes. She pulled me aside in the courthouse bathroom. Watch her, Jake. Elena's complicated. Our family in Astoria. There's history. Astoria, that coastal town up north, all fishing boats and shipwrecks. She wouldn't say more, just slipped me a crumpled photo. A young Elena, maybe 20, standing on a pier with a man who looked like he'd crawled out of a Lovecraft novel, gaunt, hollow-cheeked, staring at the sea. Elena became mom overnight. She quit her vague consulting job, something about real estate in Boise, and focused on us. She'd pack my lunches with notes. "Shine bright, Jake," in loopy script. Dad glowed, calling her his miracle. But the scratches continued. One night, I pressed my ear to her bedroom door. Not nails, whispers. Low, guttural, like someone drowning. Cale, come home." I Googled it later. Cale was her ex-husband, disappeared off the Oregon coast in '09. Presumed drowned. No body. Police reports said domestic dispute. Neighbors heard screams. Suspicion gnawed at me. I started snooping. Her trunks were in the attic, under tarps smelling of salt and mildew. The locks were cheap. I picked one with a paperclip from school, heart pounding like the bass at a Hawthorne strip club. Inside, yellowed letters tied with twine, addressed to E from Astoria. "The binding holds. Feed it blood under the full moon, or it takes you instead." What? Photos too. Elena younger, pregnant, with that gaunt man, Cale, and newspaper clippings. Missing kids from coastal towns. All boys aged 12 to 15, vanished near lighthouses. Last one, 2012, Tommy Hale, 13, from Warrenton. "Stepfather's new wife eyed suspiciously," the headline read, "but no charges." I hid the letters under my mattress. That weekend, Dad left for a work trip to Eugene, some engineering conference. Elena suggested a family bonding hike at Forest Park, the urban wilderness swallowing Portland's west side, fog thick as pea soup, trails slick with moss. She walked ahead, her boots silent on the needles. "Jake, ever feel like something's watching?" she called back. I nodded, scanning the ferns. A branch snapped, then another. We reached the Witch's Castle ruins, old stone folly from the WPA days. She knelt, pulling a small knife from her pack. "Backstory time, sweetie." She told it casual, like recounting a grocery run to New Seasons. Born in Astoria to Lithuanian immigrants, fisher folk who fled Europe post-Wet'suwet'en. "Family curse," she said. "Cale's ancestors were keepers of the old ways, Baltic gods, hungry for youth. They made a pact. Sacrifice a boy every 7 years at the solstice, or the drowned one rises." Cale tried to break it by binding her blood to the entity. When he failed, it took him, dragged him into the waves at Young's Bay. Elena survived by promising her own firstborn. Miscarried. "Tried again with me?" No, her eyes gleamed. She'd marry men with sons, feed the things scraps of their life force until the cycle demanded full payment. "You're lying," I whispered, backing away. But the air thickened, fog coiling like fingers. Whispers now from the trees. Kyle. Hungry, she lunged, knife flashing. I dodged, tripped on roots, scrambled down the trail. Branches clawed my face. Her laughter echoed, inhuman, bubbling like water in lungs. I made it home, barricaded in my room. Called Vivian, no answer. Dad's phone went to voicemail. Night fell, rain lashing the windows. Scratches at the door. "Jake, open up. It's pie time." The smell seeped under. Marionberry, sweet rot. I grabbed Mom's old baseball bat from the closet, heart slamming. The knob rattled. Then silence. Midnight. Full moon pierced the clouds, silvering the widow's walk. I crept upstairs, bat ready. Elena stood there, barefoot, dress torn, rocking like a lunatic. In her arms, one of her trunks open. Inside, not clothes, a writhing mass. Black tendrils, slick as oil, pulsing with veins. Faces flickered in it. Tommy Hale's eyes wide and pleading. Kale's hollow stare. "It needs you," she crooned. "The binding transfers. You'll be perfect, strong blood." I swung the bat, cracked her shoulder. She howled, tendrils lashing out, wrapping my ankle. Cold like the Columbia in January, sucking warmth. Visions hit, her backstory real. A story appeared 2009, Kyle chanting in Lithuanian, slicing his palm, forcing hers into the surf, waves boiling black. "I spared the babies," she gasped, "but it hungers eternal." Another lash. Pain seared my leg, skin bubbling. Footsteps downstairs. "Dad?" "No." Vivian burst through the front door, shotgun from her truck. "I drove all night." Boom. Buckshot shredded the trunk. Tendrils shrieked, retracting. Elena spun, knife plunging into Vivian's gut. "Traitor sister, you knew!" Vivian fired again, point blank. Elena's chest exploded in red mist. She toppled off the widow's walk, 3 stories to the patio stones. Crack. Silence. Vivian slumped, bleeding. "Burn it all," she wheezed. "The trunk. Salt water kills it." I dragged her down, lit the attic with Dad's Zippo and whiskey. Flames roared. The thing screamed. Voices of the lost boys, pleading, fading. Sirens wailed in the distance. Cops came. Dad rushed back. They called it a tragic intrusion. Vivian survived, spun a story about Elena's mental break. We sold the house, moved to Bend. Dad remarried a nice teacher. No trunks, no whispers. But some nights, fog rolls in off the Deschutes, and I hear scratches. Check my scars, they pulse faintly. The binding, it lingers. Portland papers mentioned unexplained fire. No mention of the trunk's contents. Vivian vanished last month. Seattle PD searching. And Dad? He bakes Marion berry pie now. I wake sweating, tasting salt. Something watches from the drains.